It is time for our MLK Day KSAT Q&A, and we are joined by Cary Clark, editorial writer and columnist for the San Antonio Express-News, and a friend of mine, but that's not why he's on. He's on because he's a columnist with the San Antonio Express-News, accomplished author. Cary, thank you for joining us. I want to talk, first off, about your column that was in the paper yesterday. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you basically took a look at what would MLK Jr. be like today? How would he be thought of in today's context, correct?
Yes.
Talk about that column, why you wrote it.
I try to write about King for every King holiday, and I do feel sometimes I'm repeating myself, but it's King has become such a cliche and in many ways, and such an accepted, beloved, and universal figure that we sometimes talk about him more than we actually read or study him, or we'll assume that he only made one speech in his life, only made one sentence or paragraph out of that speech. And it's always good to kind of bring him back to reality and to the issues we have today, and use his own words back then to try to apply to some of the issues that we're dealing with today, which are many of the same issues that he was dealing with.
For all of the remembrances that happen on this day all across the country, the calls to action, do you think there is part of Dr. King's legacy that is not talked about these days that we should be thinking about?
I think there's too much emphasis sometimes, too much emphasis almost all the time on the I Have a Dream speech, which is a great speech. It's a classic piece of oratory, classic piece of literature. And it's in its own way quite radical, but people just focus on the dream and on my four little children and judge by the content of their character, not the color of their skin, which is all wise things. But he said it was a dream. So there was a lot of work to be done to make that dream come true. So you look at the legacy of Dr. King, and it's a legacy of organizing, of strategizing, of marching, of just being uncomfortable most of the time, and doing the hard work, doing the necessary work, which isn't always glamorous, but which is necessary if that quote unquote dream is to come true. And also we need to continue to put more emphasis on this philosophy of nonviolence, which applies to personal responsibilities as well as public policy. And he called it love in action, but its essence is, how do you treat people? It's about treating people with decency, with dignity, and respect. And sometimes there's a tendency just to forget about his philosophy, but also about the very real and difficult work that's necessary to bring about the change that we want.
I think it was the president today who said he held a mirror up to our society. And sometimes even today, if you look in that mirror, you're not going to like everything that you see. But I want to talk to you. You were in New Braunfels earlier today for their MLK commemoration. What does MLK Day mean to Cary Clark?
It's a cliche, but I think it's one of those cliches that has a lot of meaning. That it's not it's a day off, it's a day on. It's when Mrs. King first had the idea, Coretta Scott King had the idea for the King holiday, it wasn't meant just to celebrate his life and to celebrate his birth and his accomplishments. More than anything, it was meant to continue his work, to not just honor the legend, but to continue the legacy. So for me, it's a day that we dedicate ourselves to his words and engage ourselves with his ideas. It doesn't mean that we agree with everything he wrote and everything he thought, but we take him serious enough to engage him critically and seek the wisdom in what he was saying, while also finding a way to apply those words and those teachings to the problems we continue to have today.
Normally San Antonio has a huge MLK Day march. Of course, it didn't happen this year because of COVID, but it is the largest in the country. And I don't think we can say that enough when this time of year rolls around. And I still think it surprises people that San Antonio has that title, that claim to fame. But what do you think that says about San Antonio, that of all the places we have the biggest Martin Luther King Day march?
People, hello, Myra, and people get hung up on the fact that we have the largest march because San Antonio only has a maybe 7%, 6% African American population. That kind of misses the point of King, I think. Some city has to have the largest march. Why shouldn't it be San Antonio? And the fact that a city that only has 6 to 8% African American population, what that means is that a lot of people in San Antonio get King. Maybe they don't get him as deeply and as fully as some of us would want people to get him. But the fact that you have 300,000 people coming out every year to honor him is a display that King isn't a Black leader, that what he was trying to do wasn't just for Black folks, it was for everyone. And at heart, the essence of the civil rights movement was an expansion in democracy, an expansion of citizenship, of making sure that all of us enjoy the full fruits of citizenship, including the right to vote without undue, unnecessary encumberment.
We started talking about your column that you wrote yesterday. I want to end talking about your column that you wrote yesterday. You can read it right now on expressnews.com if you would like to. You said that as much as he is, you called it a cliche earlier, that people talk about the I have a dream speech, but you do not think if he was still alive today, he would be as revered as he is in 2022, correct?
We deal with prophets better when they're dead. When they're alive, they make us uncomfortable. When they're dead, we can honor them and give them a holiday, and while at the same time not necessarily paying attention to all of their prophecies. And that is if you find pictures of Muhammad Ali and Martin Luther King Jr. together, it's incredible. I have Ali behind me. Today would have been Ali's 80th birthday, and it's coincidental that his 80th birthday falls on the King holiday, because in 1967, when they first met, in 1968, when King was assassinated, these were arguably the two most despised Americans in this country. And today, they're revered. Ali reached that status before he died, maybe because he couldn't speak as much as he used to because of the Parkinson's. When King died, he was, I think, had like a 75% disapproval rating. So yeah, we tune out our prophets, ignore them, hate them while they're alive, but once they're dead, we do a better job of honoring them and maybe even listening to them.
Cary Clark, columnist, editorial board on the San Antonio Express-News. I always appreciate your honesty and your frankness, not just in this interview, but also in your many excellent columns. Thank you, Cary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.